The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Fourth Book. The Story of Kurt von Suberman. Chapter 8. The event occurred thus. My parents had traveled to Cairo. The familiar sugar mill is some meters away from this city, with the purpose to go shopping. While Mom was entertained in the vast halls of the English store, I, avid of mischiefs, went down towards the street with much dissimulation. 1 moment later, I ran many blocks away from the store, attracted innocently through the rowdy black market, labyrinthine neighborhood of miserable street stalls, and secure refugee of beggars and small-time criminals. In the day, the human tide was dense. By the lanes in which the distance between two stalls of sales left a narrow passage to the pedestrian transit. Pottery, fruits, carpets, animals, and all what can be imagined was sold there, and in front each goods my curious eyes stopped. I had no fear, because I didn't move away too much, and would be easy to go back or that Mom could find me. Following a lane, I found a wide cobbled town square, with fountain, in which infinity of streets and lanes disemboweled, that only the irregular form of those names of Cairo can justify. There were hundreds of salesmen, slackers, beggars and women with the face covered by the cheddar who collected water in jugs made of clay. I approached to the fountain trying to orientate me, without noticing that a group of Arabs, who surrounded singing to a snake charmer. This spectacle is very common in Egypt, so that would have not called my attention, but, for the unusual fact that when they saw me, the Arabs went decreasing the tone of the chant, until the complete silence. At the beginning, I didn't warn about this, due to, the hypnotizer continued playing the flute while the green eyes of the cobra, hypnotized by the music, seemed to be looking just me. Suddenly, the flautist joined to the group of quiet Arabs, and I, comprehending that something abnormal was happening, one after another were making prudent steps backwards. The spell was broken when, one of them, doing a hideous yowl, screamed in Arab, the sign. While they were signalizing me awkwardly. Was like a signal. All were screaming at the same time, exalted, and running towards me with exposed intention to capture me. A terrible disturbance occurred, because, I being a child, was running within the crowd with major velocity, while my chasers were obstaculated by divers hindrances, which they eliminated by the expeditious system to throw down whatever the crosses in their way. Fortunately, the throng was huge, and many witnesses of the episode could inform it, then to the police. The persecution not lasted too much, because the frenetic fanatism that animated those men multiplied their forces, while my energies were consummating rapidly. Initially, I took a street event full of merchants, escaping, on inverse sense to the one employed to arrive to the town square, but, at the few blocks, trying to elude the crowd of salesmen and customers, I entered into an alley. This wasn't straight, but, it continued narrowing more and more, until it turned into a path of 1 meter wide, between the walls of two neighborhoods, that had advanced since different directions, without respecting the street. As I was running, the alley seemed freer of obstacles, and therefore, my chasers gained terrain, until a stone on the uneven ground made me roll defeated. Straight away, I was surrounded by the exited Arabs, who didn't delay an instant to rap me with one of their caps, and charge me imprisoned within powerful arms. The impression was huge, and unpleasant, and, even how much I screamed and cried, nothing seemed to affect my captors, who were running now, faster than before. A moment later, we arrived to destination. Even though I couldn't see, I understood the Arab perfectly, and comprehended then that the fanatics were calling with loud voices someone to whom they denominated Nassim Master. Finally, they liberated me from the bundle cab that was blinding me, depositing me over a smooth cushion of silk, of regular size. When I accustomed the sight to the penumbra of the place, I realized that I was in a white lounge, dimly illuminated with oil lamps. The floor, covered with rich carpets and cushions, counted with the presence of a dozen of kneeled men, with the brow on the floor, who, once and again lifted their sight up to me and then, clasping their hands upon their heads, elevated their lost eyes to the sky claiming office. Office. Of course, all these frightened me because, even though I suffered no harm, the remembrance of my parents, and the fact to be prisoner, produced me great grief. Seated on the cushion, surrounded by so many men, was impossible to think in an escape, and this certainty drew out painful sobs. Suddenly, a kind voice sprouted from behind me, bringing momentary hope and comfort to my sufferings. I turned back, and saw that an old man of white beard, with a turban, was coming to me. "Fear not, son," said in Arab the old man to whom they called Nassan. "No one will hurt you here. You are an envoy of the serpent god, office Lucifer to whom we serve. The sign that you carry marked proves it for his glory." He indicated in an affectionate gesture, to let him to be taken in his arms, to show me the image of God. I was really necessitating an affectionate treatment, because those fanatics didn't stop to think that I was a child. I embraced the old man, and he began to walk to the end of the hall, that resulted to be basement, where a column was elevated in which pedestal shined a small sculpture of very polished stone. It had the form of a cobra, elevated over itself, with refulgent eyes, maybe, due to the incrustation of stones of a more intense green. The image fascinated me, and I'd have touched it, if the old man not moved backwards in time. "Have you liked the image of God, little envoy?" said the master. "Yes," I replied without knowing why. "You have the right to possess the jewel of the order," continued the master, who was rummaging in a little bag of fine leather that he had hanging on his neck. "Here it is," exclaimed the Nassan master. "It is the consecrated image of the serpent god. To obtain it, people pass through hard tests, sometimes for a lifetime. But you don't need to pass any test, because you're carrier of the sign." With a sharp dagger, that he extracted from the girdle, cut a green cord of a bundle, that was hanging on the wall and, stringing the silver replica in a lasso, he put it in my neck. Then, he looked me into the eyes, in such intense form that I couldn't have never forget. Neither his words, which he pronounced very strong voice, ritually. He got me caught with his left arm, and was elevating me, so I could be seen by everyone, while with the index finger of the right hand, he signalizes to the serpent god, and said this: "Initiates of the liberator serpent. Followers of the serpent of uncuted light. Worshippers of the revenger serpent. Behold the keeper of the sign of the origin. To the one that can comprehend with his sign to the serpent. To the one that can obtain the highest wisdom, which is given to know to the earth and man. Inside of this divine child, in the bosom of the eternal spirit, the symbol of the origin of our God, and of all the spirits prisoners in the matter. And that symbol of the origin has been manifested in the sign that we, and no one else, have been capable to see. Divine child, he can comprehend the serpent from inside. But we, thanks to him, his liberator sign, have comprehended it outside, and now nothing will stop us." "Yes, yes, we can leave," screamed in choir the unrestrained Ophite initiates. Time passed by and all was getting calm, in the shelter of the Ophite order. The Arabs were preparing some kind of preparative, and I, exited by the serpentine gift, and tranquilized for the good treat of the Nassan master, I didn't distrust, when he gave me a glass of refreshing mint. A few minutes later, I fell prey of a deep doze, surely, due to an narcotic thrown into the drink. When I woke up, I was with my parents, in the British sanatorium of Cairo, with a doctor, of white smock, who was vainly trying to convince them that I was just sleeping. With the pass of the years, I went reconstructing the actions that took me to my liberation. It seems that the police chief moved quickly, fearing that the kidnapping of a member of the rich and influential family von Suleiman would conclude with a purge in the police department whose head would be the first to was him. Through some confidants, beggars, slackers, or simple witnesses, they found out without doubts that the authors of the kidnapping were the fanatic members of the millenary Gnostic order of the Ophites, considered inoffensive and even very wise. This disconcerted the policeman at beginning, who not reached to glimpse the motive of kidnapping, but, following some clues, they reached to the house of the Nassim master. The Arabs, in the euphoria to transport me there, had behaved recklessly, penetrating altogether in middle of screams and exclamations. A beggar, eyewitness of the strange procession, so eager to gain the reward that my family had offered, as to avoid the police batons, gave the information of the house, where the kidnappers entered. This one was surrounded by the authorities, but, as nobody answered the calls, the police proceeded to force the door, finding a humble dwelling, absolutely empty of people. After a strict inspection, was discovered, dissimulated under a carpet, the trapdoor that guided, through a musty stair of stone, to the buried temple of the serpent god. A macabre spectacle surprised to the presence, because, over a cushion made of silk, was lying my exanimate boy, surrounded by corpses with convulsed expression that, as last gesture, directed their arms to me. All the kidnappers had died with cobra's poison. The Nassim master and the idol had disappeared. The impression that the newcomers received was very bad, because they thought that I was dead as well, but they warned immediately their mistake, and I was transported to the British sanatorium with my parents. I still conserved the silver serpent hanging on my neck, being this zealously saved by Dad, although, sometimes, he used to show it to me, when we remembered such adventure. In that moment, while I was hearing Dad and Rudolf Hess talking about the Ophites, all these events were beating in my mind. I had seated against the window, so I just could see them sideways talking, but the voice reached clear to my ears. "This is the silver jewel," Dad said, "with the image of Office Lucifer. I preserved it with the original cord. Take it, now you must keep it." Was an extraordinary revelation. I couldn't avoid to turn back a little to see better, because Dad never gave importance to the small idol, and I, who not understood the meaning neither. Even since many years ago, that it had been erased from my mind. And there resulted that Dad had simulated and wrested importance to the issue, but, in reality he attributed certain unknown value to the silver idol. And the strangest was that he had brought it hidden to Germany, offering it in custody to Rudolf Hess. This had no sense for me. Moreover, they were talking about the sign as the Arabs. What sign? Years after the kidnapping, I still looking me up the mirror searching for the holy sign that had taken those unfortunate to the death. And I never found anything abnormal. Neither suspected that Dad believed in existence of such signal or stigma. A torment of ideas was spinning disordered, while I was seeing absently Rudolf Hess examining the silver serpent. Suddenly, introducing the hand through the neckline of the windbreaker jacket, he extracted a cord that surrounded his neck. There was a silver serpent hanging on it, exactly equal to mine. Rudolf Hess had joined them in his hand for the contemplation of my dad, and, after some minutes, he put his own, and saved the other in the pocket. Instants later, both were entering to the warm living room, without mentioning the theme of their precedent conversation. This reserved attitude convinced me about the inconvenience to talk in some manner of the matter, because I'd revealed the censurable committed espionage. I didn't think it a lot. I'd quiet until they talked me about it directly, but I promised to myself to do the impossible to obtain information concerning to the mysterious sign. With it 2 o'clock in the morning, and Uncle Kurt stood up with the intention to leave to his room. I didn't reproach this attitude, due to, he had been talking many hours, but the narration awakened inquietudes and questions in my spirit, turning me impatient and thoughtless. "Uncle Kurt," I said, "it's late, I know, and I also know that tomorrow we'll have to continue the conversation, but I really need you to answer 2 questions before you leave." "Ha, ha, ha, ha," he laughed with his terrible horse laugh. "You're just like me at your age. You need to obtain answers to live. It's like a thirst. I comprehend you, Nif. What do you want to know? Just two things, I said. First, is there any chance that such sign that the Arabs saw on you be the same that BELICENA VILLCA saw on me? Undoubtedly, Nif, he replied. The sign means a lot of things, but it is also a sanguine signum, and both of us have the same blood. The blood is not a determinant factor for the apparition of the sign, but it is a condition of quality. If a sign appears in members of our family, is the same sign. I ignored till today that existed another von Sabeman alive with such mark. Dad, with whom I spoke about this at last, told me that according to a familiar tradition, one of our ancestors proved to his contemporaneous by means of some signals to be a chosen one from heaven, in virtue of that King Albert II of Austria gave him the title of Baron in the 15th century. Thenceforth such age, the familiar annals were registered, being all the precedent obscure and unknown. In the subsequent centuries, the family was always dedicated to the sugar production, as BELICENA VILLCA says in her letter, and stayed alert to the apparition of descendants with especial aptitudes. Indeed, there were many members of the lineage who demonstrated to possess supernatural faculties, but no one achieved to resolve the familiar enigma. Only the last generations of Egyptian branch could approach to the solution of the mystery, when they discovered the existence of a mark or sign of cyclic apparition amongst the members of family, through the pass of time. But, except for this new, obtained thanks to the contact realized with certain wise men of the Islam, little is what could be known with more precision. For my desperation, Uncle Kurt continued approaching to the door, with the firm intention to leave. I'll make you the second questions, I said. Could you know what the sign is? Uncle Kurt did an annoyance gesture. Do you think that an answer that I myself searched for many years can be summarized in 2 words? I guess that your answer points to the symbol of the origin, which is the metaphysical cause of our sign. If it is thus, I'll only tell you all what I could find out about it, is less than what BELICENA VILLCA exposes in her letter. I coincide completely with her, and according to what was revealed to me in a Black Order SS, is that the symbol of the origin is attached to the mystery of spiritual incarceration. The symbol of the origin, Nif, is analogous to a charismatical mark. Who is included by such mark, conscious or not, oriented or not, towards it, remains inevitable chained to the matter. Who achieves instead to get the mark, understand or transcend it, achieves to liberate himself from the incarceration, is free in the origin. And those who seek to maintain the eternal spirit, chained under such mark, or symbol of the origin, are the masters of the Kalakikara, the white fraternity of Changshambala. And those who try that the spirit transcends the symbol of the origin, perhaps, understanding the serpent, are the initiates in the Hyperborean wisdom, the liberator gods of Agartha. This is, in sum, what I know about the symbol of the origin. Now well, if your question is in regard to the sign's mark, I will tell you that I know even less, because the sign can be only recognized by who already knows it. It is basic Nif, to distinguish one thing from another, it must be recognized first. The same principle fits for the sign. Is only seen by those who have the truth on his inner self, because only thus it is possible to recognize the external truth. For that reason, you and me cannot see the sign even if we carry it with us, because it is still missing for us to reach to the truth. I was hearing Uncle Kurt heartbroken, because he had shouted the secret hope that he would know what concerns to the sign, and that perhaps would accede to entrust me its secret, but his negative answer was simple and logic. The revelation of the sign had to be internal. My countenance reflected the dejection, and this made Uncle Kurt laugh again. Don't worry, Nif, it is not so important for us to see the sign, but that it be recognized by those who must help us. And this always occurs, as your own experience proves it. But there's something that might compensate the curiosity that you feel. In the years that I was in Asia, I obtained precise information about our sign. its corporal location. "Where is it?" I asked without dissimulate the impatience. "In a very curious place, Nif," he replied with evident exhilaration, "in the ears." He watched the clock, and without waiting for answer said, "See you tomorrow in the morning, Nifeturo," and he left. In a first moment, I thought that Uncle Kurt was making fun of me, but then I went to the bathroom, to the mirror, to see my ears. There was nothing abnormal on them, small, without load, attached to the head, were otherwise equals to the ones of Uncle Kurt. Definitively, I was not capable to see the famous sign, and I went to sleep.